up to the screen what you plan on working on. And so don't be shy. You can go ahead and turn on your cameras for it and show us what you plan on working on. Yay, awesome. And we will check back in with all of you at the end and see what all you created and see if you got to multiple things as well. So, all right, great, wonderful, thank you. All right, so now I would like to introduce our artist for the evening, Doug Barrett. Doug earned his bachelor's in graphic design from the University of Central Florida and afterwards spent over 20 years working in the field producing designs for clients all over the world. Some of his international clients included Mars Inc., Visa International, and Banco Popular. In 2006, he returned to the world of academia, earning a MFA in graphic design from the University of Florida, where he subsequently served as visiting assistant professor of graphic design, before moving here to Birmingham, where he currently serves as assistant chair of the Department of Art and Art History and our associate professor of graphic design. Doug's commitment to his community has expanded beyond his work and inspired the creation of Bloom Studio, a program for UAB graphic design students to gain real-world experience by taking on nonprofits and underserved communities as clients. Aside from continuing his graphic design work, for which he has won several local ADDIE awards, Doug also has a career in creating art for a gallery setting. So we're going to talk about a lot of these things tonight, and we're so excited to have such an inspiring professor and accomplished artist here at UAB, and so excited he's with us tonight. So without further ado, Doug Barrett.
Thanks, Christina. Wow, I feel like you just said it all right there.
So I am going to go ahead and switch us to this screen over here and share. There we go. Okay. So, Doug, let's go ahead and get started.
Let's do it.
Getting my mouse is clicked up. So you have done graphic design for how long?
Gosh, since my early 20s, and I'm almost 60 years old now. So I feel like I've done graphic design my whole life. My dad was a graphic designer, and I can remember kind of watching him, work on projects. So I feel like it's kind of something that's in my blood. So, gosh, a long time, Christina.
And you, when you went back to academia, obviously you still continued working in the field and such. This right here, as we before we get started on some of the questions that I had, you have done work for us here at UAB as well, and our building AEIVA. So do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of just get us into the mindset of what is graphic design and what goes into it?
Yeah. So I like to you had talked about Bloom Studios, and what I oftentimes I like to do is get a seat at the big table, which is where you get to sit down with all of the stakeholders and help them make decisions right from the very beginning. And sometimes a client will come to you and they'll tell you that we need one thing, like we need a logo, but after you talk with them for a while, you realize that they don't really need a logo, they need something else, and I think that being able to sit at the big table and talk to people, through the initial planning phase is great, because the design that gets done has a lot more meaning, instead of just styling something that's already done, or, just asked to kind of make something look graphic. It's better if you can start from the ground up and kind of work through it very conceptually. I'm interested in working conceptually, and I'm interested in the process of graphic design. And so the screen here, I was asked when AEIVA was close to being completed to design a logo for AEIVA. And it's fraught, Christina, with so many issues to design a logo, because, all I really had to go on was there was this picture, right, that the architect had designed. And there was part of a building built. It wasn't a complete building. And so I basically, had to create an identity about what AEIVA was going to be before anyone really knew what AEIVA was. And so I was just asked to kind of come up with some ideas on a logo, right, a brand. And the 3 little sketches there. So that's the architectural rendering, that full color thing. And then I basically went down to AEIVA. It was still had all the chain link fence around it. It was still under construction, but I did some sketches of the forms, right, that I could see. And I came up with these 3 kind of drawings from 3 different views. It was kind of the first thing. It was the first thing you would see about AEIVA. And I kind of felt like I could get a lot of interesting direction by just kind of drawing these forms. I think
yeah, and then you finally got to see AEIVA. So for those of you that have been there, this might look a little familiar, but not quite.
It's interesting because my office is in AEIVA and I teach because graphic design is in AEIVA. So we were invited, the faculty were invited to kind of walk through it once it was getting very close to being finished. And you can see that, we're just kind of seeing a skeleton of the building. So, that also kind of played into kind of my ideas about how to come up with an identity or a brand for the building.
And then here, so this is after you kind of came up with some of the main designs.
So, it's kind of interesting. Gosh, Christina, we could talk for an hour on this slide and people would just disappear into the night, I'm sure. As a graphic designer, you learn pretty quickly that you limit the choices that you give the client. And you usually only give the client 1 or 2 choices. And I think I had like a week to work up some ideas. And in this little diagram, you can see that there are the 3 sketches on the far left, right? And I named the kind of the ideas of what they were looking like. Like the first one was called cantilever because it had that long cantilever thing. And the second one I called equation because it looked like the stacked thing. And then the third direction at the bottom I called crystalline because it kind of AEIVA kind of feels, I often call AEIVA like Superman's Fortress of Solitude. It kind of looks like that kind of crystal growth kind of thing. And then from those sketches, I kind of drew very basic ideas right on the computer to start kind of thinking about it. And then on the far right, you can see the type is arranged, the top one in a cantilever form. In the second one, the middle one, it's kind of arranged like an equation. And then in the third one or the bottom one, it's kind of arranged with the slash to kind of talk about like a crystal kind of structure. And this was what was kind of presented to this along with a pretty comprehensive proposal was presented to UAB. And I have to say, like within a couple days, they called me and said, oh, we're going to go with this direct. Like they were pretty quick at a decision. So, and I think that they probably picked the right direction. So
I love it. So we have this one's obviously if you guys have been to AEIVA, this is on the side of our building. And then this one, we had some t-shirts a few years back, and then this one ended up on our t-shirts.
Yeah.
And so we've really enjoyed using it and playing with it. It's influenced your choice of the blue has even influenced kind of a lot of our marketing early on. It's changing a little bit more now, but it's really cool to see kind of the life of it and where it all started and where it's gone.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun behind the scenes kind of look.
And then, tell us kind of how it goes from that to here.
So, the university picked one of the directions, and then, if you have a logo, it has to work as just a black on white. And it has to work as just a white on black, right? Because those are the simplest ways that the logo gets seen. And then we also created this kind of blue downstroke between the E and the V to kind of create this really kind of beautiful rhythm kind of thing happening. One of the first things that you do is you put the logo on stuff, right? Like it got put on an umbrella. It got put on a shopping bag or a book bag. It's funny, Christina, but early on, we had been told that there might be like a Starbucks cart inside of AEIVA right in the atrium. So I put it on like a coffee cup. We're just trying to see
like
what would happen.
I would love for that Starbucks to come still.
Me too, and then you put it on like a street banner, like how would it be used to announce things that were happening? So you got to make sure it's going to work, and then you have to figure out all the details. So that's kind of what and those are called touch points. It's where the brand touches the customer or the client.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I love this one. Yeah. I wish John had been able to make it because he remembered this one off the bat, and I didn't remember this whole thing.
So, people always talk about like a hidden Mickey, right? Or like Mickey Mouse being hidden. And this kind of vaguely looks like a blaze or a hidden blaze, right? It kind of looks like the mouth and the tail. I have to, I would love to be able to tell you guys, oh yeah, I completely planned that from the beginning, but I didn't see it until after I kind of saw it on the building, and you can get away from it. And I think other people have asked me, is that supposed to be like a dragon? So a few people have kind of seen it, but it's kind of an odd thing.
and if you're joining us and you're not familiar with UAB, our mascot is Blaze the Dragon.
Of course.
So very, very appropriate. I've been here since the building opened, and I don't think I knew about that one. I hadn't.
It's kind of cute.
I cannot unsee it now, and I love it.
I'm sorry.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Awesome.
So a happy accident. Yeah. So the Warhol box. This was, you won an Addy for this one. So our exhibitions, we always send out invites for at least a portion of, if you're on our membership list and such. And so for a Warhol exhibition, we were thinking about ways that we can do a Warhol exhibition differently, which we did in a lot of different exhibitions, but you came up with this brilliant idea for a Warhol box. And if you'll tell us about it, I'll actually go grab mine real quick.
Okay.
Right
so, this was like a pretty big deal. This was the first time all of this work had been collected in the Southeast, I think even in the nation in some way. And so, there was a lot of pressure to make this really cool invitation. Christina has it there. And so you got the invitation flat in the mail, and then you made it yourself. It came with instructions on, how to fold it together. And yep, that's it. The instructions.
We're going to do it while you talk about
it. Yay, do it. So, it fixed so many things. It was a great way to send it out to people. It was a great way to get people excited. You get to make your own invitation. It got people invested or kind of interested in working with, the whole thing of Warhol. It becomes an artifact at the very end because Warhol.
There's also hidden quotes.
Yeah, there were hidden quotes on it. But Warhol was interested in these kind of interesting artifacts, and it becomes like an artifact. I think, we were a little concerned, like, are we allowing people to make a counterfeit Warhol, but the Warhol Foundation, I think, really was excited about it. So
they loved the idea.
They really did. They approved it. But you get this really interesting little keepsake. I've been to people's offices and it's on their desk. I think John has said he's seen it on people's desks. It's just a lot of fun, it's kind of a fun thing. So
I absolutely love it. I hate that so many people loved it. We don't have a lot left, so we can't just keep giving them out. Yeah. They were, at some point you got to cut off the print number, and but I love this design. And you won an Addy for it, correct?
It did. I think it won like a silver Addy. But, I think it's probably a gold. I feel like it's a gold Addy, but
it is definitely a gold Addy, considering the lifespan of this thing and how many people love it.
Yeah. So, but
and an Addy is a local award, correct? For
right. It's
graphic design.
The AdFed, Advertising Federation. It's a national group, and they have these local awards, and it won a local award for graphic design. So it's just kind of a fun thing.
It's one of my favorite things that you've done for us.
Oh, thanks. I've done a lot of stuff there. It's kind of crazy.
It is. It is when you really start thinking about it. Okay, so that leads us into another thing that you've done for not just us, but for UAB in general. Tell us about Bloom Studio. This is one of the things I'm most excited about that the department does.
Yes. I came to UAB, in 2008. It seems crazy it's been that long. And, there was a lot of need for a student design group. There were a lot of not-for-profits that were interested in getting students involved to help do work. And initially, I just kind of invited students, to come do an independent study in small groups of like 3 or 4. But we had so much interest from the community that we ended up just kind of creating an actual class out of it. There's 20 students in some of the classes. And our students work with a bunch of not-for-profit agencies. And the great thing, Christina, again, is that, I talked about a seat at the big table. Like, the students, that's one of the things when we pick who we're going to work with. We want people who want to work with the students, who will invite the students out to their office or out to their location, and we'll spend the day with the students. And, the students get really invested in the work, and because there's a lot more in-depth kind of discussion, it makes for really good work. It makes for work that's very, researched, very interesting. And a lot of that work ends up, because of the process of Bloom Studio, being like award-winning work. So you can see there's some pictures of our students winning Addies. There's some images there. Angela Uzzi giving a presentation. We were able to invite some pretty cool people. This guy, Bo Bergeron from IDEO in Chicago, came, and that bottom picture, he was brainstorming with our students. So it's a really great learning experience for the students.
And then these are some of the ones that they've done, correct?
Yeah, so, I just picked stuff that I'm kind of interested in the process, right? So, Bibb County, we have done a lot of work for Bibb County. In Bibb County, they invite the students out. They do a whole day of taking them around the county. The interesting thing here is these were 2 different brochures. The top one was called the Storybook brochure, and the bottom one was called the Outdoorsman. And they were printed. The state of Alabama paid to have, I think, 100,000 of each of them printed to be put in, the rest stop where they put all the tourism brochures. And so, the interesting thing is that, like, the Storybook one really kind of targeted people who were looking to go out for the day, maybe not even get out of their car, Christina, just drive to like the Cahaba River and just look at it from their car. And it kind of had this more kind of fun, enlightened feel. The Outdoorsman was for people who wanted to camp and hunt and fish. And of course, Bibb County does all of that stuff. The interesting thing is that the state did a bunch of research about in what ways were these brochures picked up at the rest areas. And they found out that the Storybook one, people traveling north and south picked up the Storybook one, and people traveling east and west picked up the Outdoorsman one. So why do you think that is?
That's a really interesting question. I would love for them to have done a focus group to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that we talked to a few people in the state and the county, And it felt like people traveling north and south were people going to the beach, and they were looking for a more, that storybook thing, it had a very romantic feeling about what Bibb County was, with beautiful photography. People traveling east and west, they were within the region of the South. They probably were sportsmen, and they were more interested in kind of this masculine idea of like hunting or camping, or it would have been a great thing to really kind of figure out. But those are the things in graphic design I'm really interested in, kind of the detail, those kinds of details. And then on the right side there's two just sketches that were done for Bibb County's, their bicentennial logo. It's like a special logo for the county. I just thought that was kind of a fun little logo project that we worked on with them. So.
And this is the map that was inside the brochure?
So this was
the
map inside the camping brochure, but I think that the really important thing that we try to help figure out with the client, and in this case it was Bibb County, was what is it that you have that, like Bibb County just came to us and they said, well, we need a logo. And it's like, okay, you need a logo, but you need so much more than a logo. There's, at this time, there wasn't a hotel or motel in the county. There were public restrooms, but they were in like a McDonald's, a Walmart. There wasn't really, there wasn't a lot of infrastructure, Christina. So, our students, went out and they kind of created this one graphic that showed like, these are like where you can hike, where you can picnic, where there's a restroom, where you can RV, where, and then showing Bibb County that helped them to start to understand, okay, like we do need more things. And it's kind of interesting at the top left, I call that a subway map, because it's got these red points. And one of the things that's kind of crazy is, anytime there's a game at UA, people fly in from all over the country to go to these games. They fly into the international airport, and they literally drive right by all this cool stuff that Bibb County has to offer. And, like we were just trying to show people, like if you're driving to Tuscaloosa from the airport, you can go see these things. They're literally right there, So we're just trying to figure out a plan for the county. And I have to say, like, we worked with the UA's Economic Development Commission. We work with a lot of different people in the state to kind of help these, build economic development is what we were trying to do in Bibb County. So it's just kind of a fun thing.
Yeah. And it's amazing that it was, not amazing, but it was great that it was so successful and that so many were picked up, and hopefully they saw an uptick in visitorship. And
well, I think the other thing, Christina, that a lot of nonprofits don't ever understand is that, when you have like UAB and UA working on a project with you and there's like a real thing made out of it, then you take that back to the state and you can say, we did this and now we want to do that. And the state is more inclined to give you more money if there's already something to look at. So it becomes kind of a neat roadmap to get more funding.
Oh, absolutely. And then be able to do more things, and it all just kind of snowballs from there. And it's amazing that you guys were able to, you're not even in the development process, but in just creating a graphic. It's the power of imagery, right?
It really is the power of design. So, but, I'm kind of...
Obviously. Yeah. Whoops, I keep switching. So tell us about this.
So I just want to apologize. There's never been a great way to show this, but Bloom Studios was asked to work on a logo and an identity for the Lakeview district, right? It's that area in that little neighborhood in downtown Birmingham. And this was before all those apartments were built there, before really, I don't even think Slice Pizza was there at the time when our students did this. But they were telling us, well, it's this young, mom and kids, and if anyone's been to that Lakeview district, it's like a bunch of bars where people do a lot of drinking. The mom and kids are not there, So, our students basically made a chart of everything you could do at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then they determined the pink one at the top is all the family-friendly places. And you can see there's not a lot of family-friendly places. And the one at the green one, the young adult, there's a lot of things for a young adult to do. So we did this with Auburn's Urban Studio helped us kind of figure out how to do this kind of study proposal. And so we went back to Lakeview. We said, look, we know you told us that you want it to be targeted towards, moms and kids, but it just isn't. That's not there right now. And so you need to start to figure out what you're going to do if that's what you want to do. So we did do quite a few design things for the project, but it was a little bit scattered because they just couldn't figure out that what we were telling them was not what was going on there. And I think that you can see that it's become a kind of a young adult hangout spot now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So and so this was kind of interesting, Christina. Our Bloom Studios worked to brand like the Cahaba River. And I know it's like, how do you brand a river? It's kind of odd. But we were asked by the Cahaba River Society and UA's Economic Development Commission, and our students worked with Cayenne Creative, which was an ad agency. So all of these great people came together and they worked with our students, that's just like pure gold for a student, to get to do the work with these people. And we were trying to figure out so we have this fantastic river, the Cahaba River, which is really beautiful. There's all this amazing, you can do boating, you can do fishing, you can do swimming. The Cahaba Lily Festival, there's like all this amazing stuff. And so our students kind of came up with a brand and identity. And this is one of the pages out of that report about what it could look like. And so you can see on the top right, it says identity. And that little logo there with the C, it's like a water droplet for Cahaba. That's actually the official logo. And it's so great for the students. And there's some how you might put signage, right, to tell people how to get to the different places to launch a boat. So, there's some really interesting stuff there that our students got to help. And, the interesting thing, Christina, is that, we know the Cahaba River is this really beautiful thing because we can go see it every day. But the problem is that when you're trying to get money from state and federal people, they don't know what the Cahaba River is necessarily. But if you can show them, this is a signage wayfinding system, this is, you can show them this whole system, suddenly it becomes a real tangible thing. It's easier to get federal funding if you can do that. So,
and it leads into the fact that enough people go to it that it needs wayfinding means the community values it, and therefore it's really, having studied visitor assessment in grad school, these type of things are so incredibly important in determining what it is that the visitor needs. And so it's always so intricately designed. And I also wanted to interject that in 2014, I think we did a Bloom Studio exhibition at AEIVA. And this is what was featured, correct? Because I think the next slide.
It's some of the stuff that was featured, yeah. So
yeah. And then it led into this, which I absolutely love. So do you want to tell everyone what the result is?
Well, so the license plate on the left, right, it's the Save the Cahaba license plate that you can get on your car. That was done many years ago with the Cahaba River Society. The license plate on the right is the new Alabama Audubon license plate. It's been approved by the Alabama Audubon. It's actually been test printed and approved by the state of Alabama. So they're going to begin getting people to sign up for this license tag. It's really a crazy convoluted process, but so one of our students designed the tag, and it's just great that our students get to do this stuff for me. So
I completely agree. I love it, and I love getting to see it on the road. And every time I see it on a car in front of me, I'm like, oh, our students did that. I know the students that designed that. And it's a lot of fun. And I know it's a great resume builder for them, because a lot of those students end up leaving UAB already with jobs.
Yeah, they do. So it's great.
Yeah. It's there's more that you can do with an art degree than, just
absolutely
just a straight going into fine art. There's a lot more with it.
Absolutely.
So tell us, Bloom Studio really kind of came about out of what influences you. So tell us what influenced you, because I know this kind of starts going into your work.
Yeah. So, there's this, the thing that really interests me about graphic design is that, there used to be graphic design and there used to be the fine arts, and that's all blurring together, right? It's all becoming kind of this blurry area, because design is influencing the fine arts and the fine arts are influencing design, right? So it's kind of, and the interesting thing about graphic designers is that they are process-based, like they're doing things because there are specific needs that need to be met. And so I'm kind of interested in the idea of doing process-driven work. These are some people who I really enjoy, like Lucy Lepard, Gaston Bachelard. Some of these people are writers. Eugene Auger, this amazing photographer, William Anastasi, Martin Vanesky is an amazing graphic designer. These are all people that are interested in mapping. And I guess when I think about mapping, it's like, it's not necessarily a map, right? That's like showing you roads. It's kind of like, I tell students a lot that, like, if you have a recipe for a chocolate cake, that's a map that will take you to a chocolate cake, so it's a little bit a different way of thinking it. And so I'm interested in the idea of mapping. I'm interested in how the hand of man kind of changes the landscape that's around us, because I'm interested in old buildings, old signage. I'm interested in forestry, plants, animals. So, that all started to kind of tie into a bunch of these projects that I've done in the last couple of years. So one of the people who's been pretty influential for me is, I have a colleague at the University of Florida. Her name is Cateri Gladys. She teaches new media studies at the University of Florida. And, we have worked on this one really long project for maybe 5 years now. So it started off, we had a artist residency at the Hambidge Fine Arts Center in Georgia. I think it's in Georgia, Rayburn Gap or something in northern Georgia. And we both enjoyed forestry. We both enjoyed the idea of mapping out like kind of these like natural forests and man-made forests. So there's like a little picture in the bottom. I think it's picture number 4. And that's this fire tower, right? That's the top of one of these fire towers that were way up. People would go up there and look out for a fire. And the people that were looking out for a fire, I mean, this is all kind of incidental, but it was usually like it was like considered kind of women's work, right? They would go up and look out for a fire, and the kids would be up there. And some of these old fire towers will have like ABCs written inside them, or stories written inside them, and drawings, because, mom was up there for 8 hours and the kids were up there for 8 hours. So that's really kind of an interesting thing to me. The other thing that's kind of interesting and that we tried to map out is the little diagram on the top, diagram number 2. That's how the windows are arranged inside the cabin of this fire tower. And they're arranged in a way so that if you see a fire, you can kind of triangulate based on the shape of the windows to tell people it's 5 miles to the west, right? And I will tell you, Christina, I have no clue how people do it, but the windows were arranged in a way that helped you figure out where the fire is. So we basically created this installation on a wall that used origami trees and we kind of basically laid the trees out in rows. There's this guy, Austin Carey. He's the father of Southern U.S. Forestry. And he's the person who basically is why we have lines of trees, right? Because he had a specific way he wanted to grow trees. So this kind of references the fire tower, the geometry of the window, and then, how trees were grown in nature, which is the 3x3 squares, and then how they're grown by man in the more managed, squares. So this was done in at Hambidge, and it was to be installed at the Austin Carey Forest. I think the next slide kind of shows. So it was installed into that fire cabin, because this fire cab is actually like a gallery on wheels. It gets traveled all over North Central Florida, and people do all kinds of installations based on about plants or forestry. So, then we basically took the diagram and placed it inside the fire cabin, so people could kind of create this space to create a dialogue about forestry and commodity of like wood and paper, and those were kind of the things that we were interested in talking about.
Do people still? Is this still traveling around?
This was installed for I think Austin Carey's anniversary, right? And it was at the Austin Carey Forest for I think 2 weeks, and then the cab still travels around, and there are still people installing stuff, but this installation is no longer in the cab. So, and that thing is called a cab. So,
okay, and then this one seems like it kind of came from that.
Yeah. So then, you're working with somebody and you've got all this energy and time invested. And, we were still interested in working on imagery based on like the commodity of a tree. Like the tree has a specific value. And, that's a picture of Catering down there installing one of these trees in that bottom row. And, we were just talking about, what if we just folded origami trees out of an actual dollar bill and then installed it in a space in the gallery. So we were invited to install it at a place called Dartington Hall in Totnes, UK. And it was in collaboration with I think the Royal Forestry Service and Art.Earth. It was kind of like they basically had a fine art people talking about forestry, and then a forestry convention, and the two people came together to talk about trees and art and management. It was a really interesting thing. So, I think there were 900 of these trees, and, I basically packed these into a bag and took them with me over to the UK. I'm sure people thought it was crazy.
What was TSA like?
It's weird. Nobody at TSA said anything. There were like 900 origami trees, and they didn't say anything.
Made out of U.S. money.
Yeah. And so we had decided we were going to tell them it was an art project. It was, I feel like sometimes if you tell, the authorities like it's an art project, they're kind of like, oh, okay. Like they just kind of let you go on. And I would tell kids don't do that, but so we just went and installed this thing, and you can see that there's a red word, poached, and I think one of the words was like stolen. So in forestry service, people poach trees. They go out and cut down a tree without permission, and that's called a poached tree. Excuse me, which I think is kind of odd, but we put these $900 bills up on a wall, and Catering and I were just like, how are we going to, it was like, are people going to take it? Maybe. We didn't know. We basically stamped behind every tree poached or stolen or missing, so that if people removed it, there'd be evidence that it was gone.
So it kind of like an anti-theft deterrent. Maybe I shouldn't take this. Let me put it back.
Yeah, but hey, Christina, I was excited. I wanted people to take the tree so you could see that action happen.
And did anyone take the trees?
They did not. And, it was up for like 4 months at Dartington Hall. And, I couldn't stay. I would love to have stayed in the UK for 4 months, but I couldn't do that. And so at the end of the show, we had told them, just pick a nonprofit and you can give them the $900. And do you know that the people in the UK told us it doesn't really have much value? So
it's like half the amount of a pound.
Yeah, so I guess it wasn't as alluring as we thought it was going to be. But I think in the next picture, you can kind of see it maybe a little bit better. So, it's kind of weird. We were given this alcove where people would sit and talk. And I think that, these people being British, I think they thought we were going to do these beautiful little watercolors, and then these watercolors would be hung up. And, we literally nailed 900 trees into this wall. We put red ink behind every tree. It's a little hard to see, but we put circles of sawdust, which I also took with me to the UK. So there's circles of sawdust, which kind of references a cut down tree. And then as we were installing this, people kept sitting on the damn benches. And so Kateri and I were like, do we want people sitting inside of our art installation? So we painted white glue on the top of the bench and put sawdust on the top. These poor people, Christina, I kept thinking like Christina and Ava would kill me if I did this. I mean, we literally just destroyed the whole area just to kind of secure, but it ended up being really great. And the people were just sweethearts about it. It took us like 3 days to install it. They were so excited to have this kind of kooky American installation. And
I love it. I love it because I'm not the collections manager that then has to take it down.
I know. I felt bad for that woman, but they were very sweet. So
yeah. No, it's a great installation. I would have loved to have seen like a couple of people just, take one.
The crazy thing is right to the right of it was the entrance to the Dartington radio station. So there were all these like crazy character, like online UK people. And I kept thinking, yeah, these people will steal at least one of these dollar bills. But they told us that no one had taken a dollar. It's the British. Yeah. No one's going to take a dollar bill.
So proper.
Yeah.
But it's such a great idea in that like all the thought processes that go behind your graphic design carry over into gallery work as well.
It does. I think that a lot of graphic designers are interested in taking their design skill set and trying to make something else out of it. So.
And I know we're getting short on time, but this is something that has influenced our coloring sheets for tonight. So I would love for you to tell us about this one.
So, again, this is this whole long 4-year process. Kateri, Gladys from UF and I are working in these forests, and we were invited to this artist's, to an artist residency at Sam D. Hamilton Noxubee National Wildlife Refuge in Noxubee, Mississippi. And a lot of these national wildlife refuges host artists to do artwork about the refuge, and then it becomes part of the collection. And we were interested in creating this thing that talked about the cockaded woodpecker, right? And so they go through and burn these areas out, and people become alarmed, but you have to burn it out in order for the woodpecker to come and make a home there. So it was called Coming Soon. It's kind of like you would see like for apartment buildings, coming soon, right? So this was a coming soon where we, figured out which tree a red cockaded woodpecker would possibly inhabit. And then we placed, we did these silkscreen posters with the official National Wildlife logo on them. And you can see that hugging thing, like if you can't hug the tree, it's big enough to be inhabited. And then we just installed them in this area that the forestry manager told us this is the area that would be a range of a woodpecker, of these clusters of woodpeckers. And then, we installed it. And in the next one, you can kind of see, as you're driving by, that's what you would kind of see. You would just see these really cool graphic black and white. And then at the interpretive center, there was a little sign that said, for more information, at the interpretive center. And then they would tell them that it was what the project was. So I think it's a really fun thing. Again, I think it was people who thought they'll do some watercolors and, literally were like, well, we're going to nail this into the tree. And that, oddly, Christina, they were like, okay, if you use this one type of nail, it won't hurt the tree, so.
Well, and it draws attention to not just the bird, but also the tree. And so you're helping them fulfill their mission.
Exactly.
And drawing people's eye.
So, we're trying to figure out like what would the next step be for this project.
Yeah. So I want to, Rachel, were there any questions in the chat on your end before? Because I have some more questions.
There's no questions yet, but if anyone has any, feel free to type them in the chat and we'll ask them at the end here.
Great. So as we, I know mapping is really kind of influences a lot of your gallery art. So I do want you to say a few things about that, but I also want to make sure I ask the question, are you doing any art right now, and how has COVID influenced your art?
Well, it's kind of funny because I think the next person is Doug Baulos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people often talk about the Dougs, right? It's the two people, Doug.
Our favorite Dougs.
Yeah, okay, good. So for COVID, there's a COVID exhibition coming up, and we made masks for everyone at AEIVA and in the art department, and we put imagery on them based on our idea of who you were. And I hope no one's offended, but so we made these really cool masks, which will be kind of shown at this exhibition. That's one of the COVID projects, that I'm working on right now. There's a couple things that I'm kind of working on, but I'm working actually with AEIVA on this really cool pop-up book, right? And I'm engineering the pop-ups for Titus Kafar. And so that's going to happen over the next 6 to 12 months. And I'm really excited about engineering these pop-ups. I mean, we did some sample pop-ups. Christine, I don't know if you saw them or not, but.
Oh, I did. I did a happy dance as we were texting Titus about him, and that he had a wonderful reaction too. So.
Yeah, it'll be good.
We do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
From Dr. Benoit. She asks, what makes a difficult client?
What makes a difficult client? Oh. It's really interesting. I tell the students this a lot. A difficult client doesn't value what you do as a graphic designer. And so I kind of have a thing that I tell people. One of my best clients was like Mars Chocolate, and no one at Mars Chocolate ever told me, I don't like that color or I don't like that type. The only thing Mars Chocolate told me was, we sent it to our lawyers and we can't show it that way because it means something that we can't legally say, right? So, a company like Mars Chocolate, they hire you because they've seen your work and they understand you're the designer, and they just let you do the design work and they worry about the business side. The worst clients, I don't even want to call them the worst or the difficult, but it's people, small business, they own the business. It's very personal. They don't want to give up any control. And God bless them. They're small business. I love it. It's the backbone of our country and our economy. But when people become very, I guess, invested in like their business, it's very hard to work with those people. So.
Well, it's like their child, and so I get that.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
So because we only have a few more minutes, and I know that mapping it's shown up in a lot of your work.
Yeah.
And it also influences your process. So can you just say, I'm going to click through a lot of these other slides as you talk.
Sure.
Yeah, so just tell us
one of
about
the things I want to do is I need to have rules. Graphic designers want rules. These are like kind of drawn sketches. I was literally driving a car, and without looking at it, I was drawing these sketches similar to those subway sketches, right, by William Anastasi. And it just created these really cool maps. Like every bit of my drive from into grad school, you could see it in this one image, right? The whole drive in one moment. And I thought that that was a really interesting kind of way to talk about a commute. And then this is how it's kind of shown in the gallery space on these clipboards, because I actually use these clipboards to hold the paper in place while I was driving and drawing. And then that kind of led to this other thing where I had to walk from the parking garage to my studio space. And so I did these rubbings with type that I found along the way. And then I think in the next one, you can see that this is how it got shown in the gallery space. And I love, Christina, the way that that paper would kind of do this, where it would kind of, when people walk by, it would do this. It was really beautiful when people were in there. But it just kind of, again, in one moment, you can see the whole walk. This was done with a peer at UF when I was a grad student, and we basically interviewed this bee biologist, and it's in the form of like, you know, the bee hive, you lift up the frame and then you put it back down. But we turned it into like a graphic design artifact, right? And it just kind of talks about the question and answer session that we had with him. And you as the viewer, you become a beekeeper because you're lifting it up to see it and then you're putting it back down the way that like a beekeeper would do.
Hey, Christina, we have a really cool question to end the night.
Woo!
It sounds like Doug is ready for it. This is from Danielle. You mentioned that the line is blurring between fine art and graphic design. Can you speak to that transition a little more? Has fine art historically looked down upon graphic design or not viewed it as equal art, etc.?
Yeah, who is this, Danielle?
Danielle.
Okay. Okay, so thanks, Danielle. That's a great question. Yes, the fine art discipline, they think they're better. Christina, can I just say it, or should I be a little more political?
Go for it. Just go for it.
They think that graphic design is a sellout, that you're doing work for money. It's not a real thing. I fight with my colleagues all the time about graphic design. And, graphic design would be great if it wasn't for the client, because then you could do whatever you wanted to do. So I think what's happening is that people are making money at graphic design at the day, and then graphic design people are very creative people. They are interested in printing, silk screening, making 3D, video, web. So they start making what basically becomes artwork for themselves, and it's called designer as author. That's that mode of working, where you're the author. You own it because it's being designed for you. A lot of people do it. The crazy thing, and people are going to tell me I'm crazy, but if you go to like Etsy.com, a lot of people making these really beautiful handcrafts and stuff. I guarantee you these are graphic design. Most of these people are graphic designers, and they're making this stuff on the side, because, I always tell the students, graphic designers, they are doers. They make stuff with their hands. They're constantly looking at stuff. They're connected to our culture. They make the culture in a lot of ways because it's what you see every day. I think that, that's just kind of this interesting area where it's starting to fuzz together. I don't know.
And all of our BFA exhibitions, so our graduating seniors, there's always a set of graphic designers in it, and their work flows seamlessly with all the other medium artists. And so I like the stuff that goes into this, like, that makes the show really great. And so I love that it's in our department and that you guys are doing so much with it. And it's also fun to kind of see, because some of those students will show some of the work they've done in Bloom Studio in their BFA exhibition, which is really cool to kind of see what you guys did that year. So I've really enjoyed you guys being here tonight. I'm going to switch it to grid view. And as we do, every coloring night. Let's see. Oops, that's the wrong piece of paper. Let's see what you guys were able to finish.
Wow.
Oh, Danielle, that's beautiful.
Yeah, wow.
Danielle Kidwell, I see you with your hummingbird.
So Joseph did the snake. I did the snake. I wasn't sure anyone would do that, but good job. That's exciting.
I almost did, but you guys know I own a parrot, so I had to do a bird.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and thank you, Doug.
Yes.
Thank you to the department. We're really excited that you were able to join us. Our next few, this month in August, as we lead into the school year, we are featuring, I believe, not all of you, because there's a lot of you, but all of our next artists are UAB professors. So we're really excited to be highlighting y'all's work and highlighting as we go into the school year. So make sure you guys join us again on June 23rd. And remember, that one's going to be a little different. It's going to be more of a demo as you guys are working on the same thing. So he's going to walk us through the process of making this calligraphy flourish, which turns into mail art. And so, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope to see you all again soon. So thank you, everyone. It was good to see you all. And I will hopefully see you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Stay out of trouble.
Thank you.
Bye, Danielle. Bye, Holly. Bye, Danielle.
Oh, the world's shrinking.